911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something that looks like a man. I don't know what it was. Just that it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was. Whatever it is, it's running. I couldn't catch it if I was going to chase it. So whatever it was, it was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better. Dio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right.
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Oh, and the guy is on foot.
I don't know what, he's a big, real big person. That's all I can say.
Okay, but it is a person.
Yeah, I'd say it was a person or somebody really big. But he's all in black.
Is he a black male or a white male? Did you actually see whether, or was he just wearing black?
He's all black and he's big. He is big.
Hello, everyone, from the remote jungles of Clinton Falls, Indiana. I think I hit the right button. This is Larry Battson, broadcasting from the Hoosier State as we're talking all Bigfoot tonight here live on Facebook. It's always great to see everyone on Friday nights here on Facebook as we discuss the legend of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and some of the findings that I've discovered over the last, oh gosh, I cannot believe it, almost 50 years. I want to say prayers go out to Ron Moorhead, who's lost his daughter in the last day or so, and man, unbelievable. You're not supposed to bury your children. You know what I'm saying? So all prayers to Ron. I had an opportunity to talk to him before these sad events occurred. And he checks in every once in a while, I guess, here on the program. And he had some interesting things to talk about on the 911 call. Because we've had several people ask us, he said, where did that come from? Well, I find out it came from Washington. Hello, Mark. Nice to have you with us tonight. Michael as well. Of course, the Coles, Carrie and Perry Cole, who are regulars and tune in on all of our different broadcasts that we do here on Facebook, including Hi Linda, including our 2 o'clock Monday through Friday for the kids. We draw, we talk about animals, we draw animals, we sing about animals. It's a fun time. It truly is. Then at 9:30 on Wednesday nights, we tell animal stories. And we've got a few after 41 years of traveling all over this country of ours with our collection of wild animals doing educational programs. Believe me, there are 2 or 3 stories that we've accumulated over that time period. But on Friday nights, it's all Bigfoot. And as I've told many of our listeners before, my interest started many, many years ago. In fact, it was right after the Patterson-Gimlin film, and I had a chance to see for the first time that Argosy magazine and looked at those pictures on the cover and thought to myself, wow, could there really be something to this? Could there be actually something to this? Because, you know, there have been discussions about whether the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch existed or not, you know, and it's been going on in this country since, well, basically since the 20s and Fred Beck and the 8 Canyon incident. But it really took off, of course, in 1958 when Jerry Crew in California found those infamous footprints around his equipment when they were working on the roads in the backcountry in Northern California. And the first pictures were taken of himself with this huge casting that he had made from those footprints. Hello, Linda. So we're really, you know, needless to say, a fascinating subject. But as we were getting ready to say, Ron Moorhead had actually interviewed the man on this 911 call that we play at the start of every program. And he said, well, I can listen to his voice. I can listen to the tones of his voice and realize very quickly this man is telling the truth. This recording is authentic. In fact, if my recollection is correct, his dog was killed. Basically, he saw his dog get thrown several feet, and that's how it was killed by something. So, But it's just unbelievable to listen to that. And you can hear the terror, the honesty of his voice. And that was pretty sobering the very first time I had a chance to hear that. Of course, Ron proceeded to educate me that it was on his Sierra sounds. And boy, is that fantastic. You know, the recordings, we talked about that for a little bit. You know, and we both agreed on one thing, that these things definitely have a language, a way to communicate with one another. They can make any sound. They can imitate any sound we know of. Of course, we were talking about the intelligence. How smart can one of these creatures be? It's unbelievable. I mean, as I've said here before, when we walk into the forest, compared to the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot, we are morons. We're idiots. We have no way. There is no way we could ever compete with these things physically or intellectually in the great outdoors, especially when you're looking at the country, the backcountry of Northern California and Washington and Oregon, and of course British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, all across through Ontario. Billions and billions of miles of nothing. Some of the most ruthless terrain that you could ever find. And these things figure out a way to survive quite well. Hi, Bob. Nice to have you with us tonight here. Carly. Hello, Carly. My niece is with us tonight. It's always fun. She likes to, she said she likes to get scared and then go to bed. That's what she told me. No, she didn't say that at all. But I have warned the children. I know, you know. Sometimes I've been told it's a little bit too much for the children, but I think the children need this sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? They need the respect. Because years ago, we were having a Halloween party, and I said, let's go. And we live on 20 plus acres of woodlands. And I had a trail that we were, after dark, all the children in their costume, we were going to walk the trail to see what we could find in the woods. And I mean, we didn't even have to put anything in the woods. Their imaginations were fantastic. Because the first time we got close to the woods, they were all ready to go back. They were, you know, and the only thing I told them, I says, you know, the things you see back here, they'll leave you alone. They'll just leave you alone. And I said that, and they're all right away wanted to go back to the party. We're done with the hike. Didn't need to have any actors out there. Didn't need anything like that. The imagination did it. And you know, that's what happens to a lot of researchers. The guys that are spending time in the field, they're seeing things that just aren't there. They're hearing things that just aren't there. God love them. You know, and we've all seen the photographs. The photographs of the blob squatches, they call them. Hi, Michael. Nice to have you with us tonight. The cryptid squad is in the house tonight. God love them. That's fantastic. But we've all seen those photographs. You know, what are they seeing? I mean, I can kind of see something, but it doesn't really. You know what kind of irritates me now? Camera equipment is fantastic. I mean, these little cameras they have on these cell phones now, they take unbelievable pictures. Unbelievable. But here's the problem with that. Most of the sightings only happen for a few seconds. Just moments. That's all. Moments. And it happens and you're in such a degree of shock. When you see this thing, maybe 8-9 feet tall, covered with long black or brown fur, the immense size of it, the muscular, I mean, they would make The Rock look pathetic. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely pathetic. And as many people have told me, they said the speed that these things can move, when you see that, that is so sobering. Because you realize at that moment, anytime you're in the forest, if it really did want you, you would not have a chance. None. None whatsoever. It'd be over. My friend, who did a lot of time outdoors at night in the search of the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, in Ohio, was up in by the believe it was the Wabash. What was it, the Wabash River? I'll have to check into that. But he wanted to record sounds. That's exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to record sounds. So he's sitting next to the river, total darkness. He's by himself. And he'd heard them before. He'd heard these screams that Bob Jackson described as, and that's Bob Jackson, Yellowstone Park Ranger, Action Jackson, that when Bob Jackson, he described these screams as it sounded like 1,000 head of elk going to their death. That's what it sounded like. And when he heard these screams, he said, I have to record them. So my friend is in the field. He's in total darkness. Can hardly see the hand in front of his face. And he's thinking to himself, I have a feeling that I am not alone. He used to go into the forest and he said he could walk around and they'd stand behind trees. They wouldn't get close enough to touch him. They just kind of stay away and just kind of walk between trees. Didn't do anything to him. But they're just so wary. And he screams. So he's sitting there next to that creek bank. And he can hear. He knows he's not alone. He can hear something moving through the forest. But it's still quiet. It's still so quiet. So quiet. Until he heard the last 3 steps. Shoom. 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 And it was right behind him. And then he could hear it breathing. So he reached down and turned on that recorder. He was terrified. And he knew one thing. Not to turn around. Not to look it in the eye. Not to be a threat of any kind. And he recorded that breathing. That loud, deep breathing. Then he could hear it leave. He could hear it shuffle through the forest and it was gone. He heard no more sounds that night. No more screams. But he had this fantastic recording of this thing just breathing. He played it for a physician. And the doctor said, you know, whatever made those sounds, I have to tell you, I'm kind of envious. They'd have to have 55-gallon oil drums for lungs. Hello, Austin. Austin Lee's with us tonight. Fantastic eyewitness, I'm telling you. But, yeah, he said 55-gallon oil drums for lungs. Man, you know, physically, I was thinking about this the other day. I remember talking to Bob Titmus via the telephone from his home in Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia. And we were discussing his various experiences with the Bigfoot, Sasquatch. And he'd had a number of them. But the one account that was so amazing to him was in 1963 in Kitimat, British Columbia. He walked up basically to a rock wall, kind of what you would see in Yosemite or El Capitan, something like that. And these things had already climbed a third of the way up that rock wall when he saw them at first. When he walked out of the woodlands, and there it was. And he says, I watched them, and they'd take those great big long arms. He said there was 3 of them. There was a very large one slightly smaller, and what appeared to be a baby. But he could watch them, and they would stretch out with those long arms they have, find a crack, then pull themselves up. It's like those rock climbers that we've seen with the chalk on their hands. And they climb up these vertical cliffs that are, look, you know, I mean, it's almost difficult to watch. It's so scary, especially like me, if you have a thing about heights. But Bob said, I watched them, and he said they climb. He said it was probably about 1,500 feet. And they climbed straight up that cliff in about 30 minutes or less. He said he couldn't believe the speed that they'd gone up with them, and the strength they would have had to have in their fingers, for one thing. And consider this, the size. You know, you see rock climbers are all real little skinny guys, girls. They got every muscle in it. They probably got about 1% fat, if that. It's all muscle. These things, they're all muscles, right? But just think, there's an animal that weighs 5, 6, maybe 700 pounds that's going up the side of that wall by using its fingers to hold on to cracks and pull themselves up. You know, that's pretty incredible. That's pretty amazing. I mean, my gosh. I've seen tree limbs. In fact, we saw a lot of these in Ohio. Hi, Corey. Nice to have you with us tonight. We saw in Ohio tree limbs about the diameter, about like that. That gives you any idea. And they were broken like wet wash rag would be twisted. They were actually twisted. They weren't snap cracked like this. They were twisted. That's how they were broken. Can you imagine what strength, what power something would have to do that? Especially several feet off of the ground. When I was talking to Ron Moorhead, we were talking about their different sounds they can make, and that they actually have a language. And I told him the story that I've told on this program before about my good friend up in Washington who has a cabin 5 miles south of the Canadian border. One night he's at the neighbor's house, and they can hear something moving through the woods. And so everyone that was there, 3 or 4 people, lived in the area, and they were quite used to dealing with Sasquatches. They had no doubt they existed because they had seen them. But they also had on that porch with them was this Rottweiler. And you know, a Rottweiler's a pretty tough dog. Can be a pretty bad dog. I mean, wow, power. Well, that Rottweiler's sitting on the porch between them, and he's looking out in the woods, and they can't see anything. But they can hear the crunch of something walking through the forest. And that Rottweiler goes in this little growl. But he doesn't leave the porch. Doesn't want to move off that porch. Doesn't want to go into the woods. And then they can hear out of the forest. They were making a sound. They were actually calling the dog. Mowgli, Mowgli. I know, that's right. Mowgli. Well, when those gentlemen heard that, and they decided to go inside into the cabin, guess who went through the door first? Mowgli. He did. I mean, it's quite incredible. I mean, there's several times. A good friend of mine, as I've said before, she had her truck hung up down in the infamous Morgan Monroe State Forest. They couldn't get it out. It was a Toyota Land Cruiser, one of the old styles, you know, real truck. Quite a vehicle, off-road vehicle, amazing. And had gotten off on this rut and was stuck, and basically what they're trying to do is to bounce it off this tree so that she can back it out of there. Well, they kept hearing these voices in the forest. So they think, well, there's somebody out here camping or something. They can help us because we're not having any luck. And they're yelling, hey, 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 anybody out there? No answer really, but they can hear this garbly, gooply, bubbly, some sounds. It sounded kind of like talking to them. So they're sitting in the truck and they're all exasperated. This was going to be their weekend camping trip. She had her dog with her. And here's the thing about the dog. When that Land Cruiser stopped, it would hop out. It was ready to do something. Well, for some reason, it wasn't hopping out of the Land Cruiser. And they're all sitting in there. And all of a sudden, she said, it felt like someone had grabbed the back end of that truck and just jerked it out of that rut. Boom! Out! And they didn't say a word to one another. They just backed that truck up, headed down the road, and drove back home. And about halfway home, they looked at each other and said to themselves and to each other, what was that? What happened back there? What did happen back there? Hi, kitty. Want to remind everyone as well, Wildlife Educational Services, our company, we produce this program as well as our 2 o'clock shows on Facebook Live and also our Wednesday night animal stories. That I do artist. I am an artist. I also drink from the Yeti, North America's greatest drinking device. Keep that beverage cold for, oh my gosh, 2-3 weeks. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, getting back to it. We have a couple limited edition prints that are available to raise money for our wildlife, our critters, tigers and bears and stuff. There's the newest one, Sasquatch. That's all pen and ink, and that is available. Just message me through Facebook, Larry Battson, or our Facebook Bigfoot page. Gosh, I almost forgot. How stupid am I? Footers Forum. And we've got lots of stuff on there. Footers Forum on Facebook. We invite you to check it out. And also, sometimes people call this one of the most troubling pieces of art I've done. If I could get a hold of it. It's called Feel Like Something Watching You. Yeah. I know of grandparents and uncles that have had to babysit, that they've taken this print and put it in a darkened room, and if the children are bad, they make them go to the room. And I tell them I think that's close to child abuse. But anyway, both of them are available. Message me through Facebook. Larry Battson or Larry the Animal Guy and friends. Anybody has any comments or questions, I will attempt to entertain them with, who knows, maybe an answer, a thought. Yeah, Kitty says, Ron has a Yeti, and you talk about, hey, Yeti. I know, the Yeti's the best. We like it, especially I like the name. And also, our broadcast is brought through the Yeti microphone. Now, what a coincidence that is. So they're responsible for the great sound, the Yeti microphone. And as I was told, the best microphone for all podcasts. And we've done 2 or 3 of those. Yes, we have. Bill Drankinas we lost just over a year ago. He was a good friend, an amazing Sasquatch Bigfoot researcher. In fact, he said I met him in New Cumberstown one year at one of the conferences there in Ohio. I think it was the one Smokey Crabtree was at. Jeff Meldrum might have been along. And we were talking. He is, without a doubt, as I mentioned, one of the best, without a doubt, the best, one of the best researchers. Sorry, I got parlayed here because I was trying to read. Hi, Larry. Annabelle Parker checking in. Hello. Love my posters of Bigfoot. They are hanging in my room. Well, that is great. Annabelle got for her birthday both of those prints, and she is the cutest Bigfoot researcher you'll ever find. She's going into the 1st grade. She goes with her dad, her uncles, and they go on Bigfoot research trips. And she is absolutely amazing. Yes, she is. She loves Bigfoot. So I've already decided she's probably going to grow up and be an anthropologist, and she will probably be the one to put all the pieces together and solve the whole legend mystery. I'm pretty much satisfied with that. Annabelle Parker. Oh, hi Kyle, nice to have you along. Hey, from the wildfires in Naples. You need to give us an update on that, Kyle. I've heard about that. Dave Herring says, what does Bigfoot do about fleas and ticks? He lets possums eat them off. Yeah, he just stands still. Have you seen the video where the deer is standing still and the possum is eating off the ticks? Yeah, that's what he does. Because that's simple. Because possums eat lots of ticks. They're a very valuable animal. You know what I've decided? That there are so many possums in the forest. Because you get all these scientists. All the scientists. You know, they want the proof. You know, someone's testimony. Someone could pass a million lie detector tests on what they had seen or heard or whatever. But no, the scientists, of course, what they want is a body or part of a body to study, which is, I'm not going to be the one to bring it in. I would, even if I had the opportunity to do so. That's not going to happen with me. I'm not going to shoot one. I don't have that right. Besides, as I've heard before, from hunters that have had one in their sights, and they're looking at it through their sight, and they think to themselves, well, for one thing, it looks almost human-like. Hello, Ingrid. It looks almost human-like. And what if I don't kill it? What if I don't kill it? Because you've seen one. I'm telling you, this is a fact. This is a fact. If you've seen one, there's 2 or 3 that you haven't seen. Because at night, especially at night, they are invisible. Invisible. They could walk right up to you, and you would have no idea till you either heard them, or of course saw them, or some smelled them. Yes. Okay. Kitty says, did a scientist really steal a hand of one, steal a finger, and replace a real person's finger? I don't know. I haven't heard that one, Kitty. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's I don't think so. But I don't know for sure, And take it here for test. I have no idea. Kitty, you've got me on that one. I don't even have a response to it. But Bill Dranginis, I get strayed. God, we miss William. I met him, as I said, in New Cumberstown at one of the Bigfoot conferences. I think Smokey Crabtree was there from Falk Monster. Interesting man. I enjoyed time with Smokey. I think maybe a young Jeff Melder may have been there. And that, apparently, Bill told me that's when we first met. Well, the next time I really saw him is when we did the National Conservation Training Center, and we did the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service lecture, and he walks up to me and he said, hi. I said, Bill Dranginis, and I'm here to be a part of this historical event. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, this isn't a historical event. He said, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have never, ever, 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 ever entertained anything about a program on Bigfoot in any of their facilities. He said, I could not believe it when I heard that they were going to have you come in and do this talk. So I'm here tonight. I'm going to film part of it. And he said, this is fantastic. Mark says, replying to Kitty, sort of from the story I heard, the finger was retrieved years later and then proven to be human. But another source says that it was Swiss. Well, could be. Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. Cody Herring from Footer's Forum. Speaking of parasitic insects, what do you suppose the grooming habits of a Sasquatch are? Similar to other primates? I hear multiple accounts where witnesses describe them as having very clean hair appearance. It could be like a primate. They could take care of one another. Absolutely. Primates go through what is called grooming. My baboon that we have, Elizabeth, she's an Ollie baboon from Uganda. She's 11 years old. And here's an unusual behavior about her, is that when they feel like they've been bad or they've got into trouble, they'll start grooming. And they get so much into it. They just check out every hair and smack their lips and they're grooming, and they're very serious about this. She'll take my entire head and go through your whiskers, go through your mustache. Thank goodness she never finds anything. I don't think she does. Maybe, but yeah, for a long, long time. And what this is, it's a rank of power, because the alpha baboon, the head baboon, the largest male that basically looks after the troop, and he's also the one that if a lion, leopard, hyenas get too close, he warns his family. Makes a sound. And that means, in their own quote-unquote language, danger. So they run to a tree and they climb to the top. But the leader stays on the ground because he is fearless. He has canines 2.5, 3 inches long. They're like knives. And the strength is unbelievable. And I talked to a man and went to Africa to basically capture alive several animals. And he said, of all the animals, he said, we caught Cape buffaloes, we caught lions, we caught a lot of the big cats, cheetahs, some of the smaller cats, caracals, servals. But he said, I will tell you right now, when the baboons hit that net, he says it just exploded. It just exploded with the activity and them bouncing off, and because they have, my gosh, they have so much energy. So when I look at something like that, the energy they have and the strength that they have, and also the thinking process. This is just a monkey. This isn't like an ape, but it understands every word that we say. Of course, your dog at home probably does the same thing as well. But the baboon understands every word that you say. And the Sasquatch, which is far more intelligent, the baboon, the mandrill, we get into the lesser apes, the gibbon, and of course the great apes, the chimps, the orangutans, the gorillas, which are so smart. But they're not as smart as the Sasquatch. When you walk into the forest, and they see you and they watch you, they know immediately what you are going to do and what your plan is. They look for guns because they know those are no good. They've been shot at before, more than likely. And they look for just how you act. I have told these researchers before, I says, when you go into an area where you think that there might be Sasquatches, do not change a thing. Do not be suspicious. Set up your camp, make noise, play music, prepare your food. Because if you get there and you set up your camps and all of a sudden you're in your camouflage and you're going off and you're tiptoeing through the forest and looking around for any sign of, nothing's going to happen. Because for one thing, if they're around and it's the daytime, they're just going to take about 2 steps and be gone. They have no interest in you. Are you kidding me? None. The only interest they have in you is if you're being harmed. The only interest that they have in you is if you have something for them to eat, food. That's it. They don't want anything to do with us. They're crazy. All right, Michael. How often do the Bigfoot climb trees to take a cougar's kill? Well, they don't have to climb a tree to do that. Because I have always said that the Sasquatches will track a cougar, and when it does make a kill, it saves the Sasquatch a lot of trouble. I told you they were smart. It saves them a lot of trouble. Because as soon as they hear that cat make that kill, they'll go in and they'll move that cat off of that deer or whatever, elk or whatever. They'll move it off. I mean, a person can do that with the right movements. And anyone's had any experience working with big cats like that, you can move them off the kill. So a Sasquatch is far more intimidating than we are. Far more superior than we are. They have that cat running for its life. You know, and the hunters that have told me they've killed the deer, they're walking up to get the deer, tag it. And about that time, here it walks out of the forest, he grabs the deer, tosses it up over its shoulder, and walks off with it. Just like that. Just like that. Or as Austin Lee said, you know, they tuck it underneath their arm and they carry it off. Like that. Just put it underneath their arm like you're carrying a briefcase or a purse. Hi, Lee. Lee's joining us from Kentucky. Nice to have Lee along with us tonight here on our broadcast, which is every Friday night. We hope you enjoy it. We certainly have a great time doing it every Friday night, 10 o'clock. Tell everyone you know. We do have fun. Oh, we do have fun. I have to do this. I got in trouble for this last week. I did. I was playing the sounds from Polyock, Washington that were recorded in the 70s, and one of our listeners had to go to work at midnight, and she said she needed an escort to her car because she was afraid to walk in the dark. She works all night. She's afraid to walk in the dark from her house to her car after she heard the sounds from Polyock. But Polyock or however it's pronounced. But they're pretty intriguing, and I always like, because I know we have new people here tonight, I should say, and that are listening. And I whenever I play this, especially when I'm doing a presentation, and I could look the people right in the eye, and I'll play this, and I'll ask anyone if they've ever heard this sound before. And one particular program I was doing, guy bolted out of his seat, stood straight up. He says, "My God." He said, "That's the same sounds I heard right outside of my cabin down in southeastern Indiana. I got to leave." So he bolted. He left. And everybody looked at each other and thought, "My gosh." And needless to say, I had everybody right there in my hand for the rest of that lecture. So that was cool. Yeah, it was cool. They said, "You need one of those guys. You need somebody to do that." I said, "Yeah." But this is from Polyock. And if you listen carefully, hi, Shannon. Oh, there she is. There's Shannon. We're playing those sounds again, Shannon. These were recorded on a piece of audio equipment that was not very good. So you hear lots of birds, you hear lots of insects. But just take a listen. This is the good version here. Those are just chilling. I mean, they're just chilling. I had someone try to tell me they were coyotes. I said, no, I don't think so. I've raised lots of coyotes, and I don't think so. Francis asked, do they like reindeer? Tracy wants to know. I have to say something here very quickly. One of the coolest people we know who just retired as an elementary principal up in beautiful and the home of Annabelle, Gaston, Indiana. Tracy Schaefer just retired. Congratulations. She was a great woman. You'll have to come and watch it when we bring the animals to Westdale. You'll have to come and see us on that day because we missed them this year because of the virus and all the schools canceled. Well, they didn't cancel; they were gone. They couldn't go to school, so that was kind of a, as we would say, a bummer. This is it though. The prints we have available to raise funding for our animal family. Feel like something watching you? Oh, that's charcoal pencil I did that in. Yeah, so that's available. You can see it. Oh yeah, very nice. At least that's what they tell me. It'd be kind of conceited for me to say it being I drew it, but anyway. And our latest one, there's the latest one. Sasquatch. And the beautiful Annabelle got 2 of them for her birthday, so that's fantastic. Scary stuff, Lee says. Dustin says, best principal ever. I would have to agree. I would have to agree with that. My gosh. I would really have to agree with that. Shannon says, I want one. Oh, you want a print? Message me through Facebook, Shannon, and we'll get that all put together. Just message me Facebook or Larry the Animal Guy and Friends, or just Larry Battson, Battson. That's good too. That'll work. Kitty says, bought your book. The grandkids love it. Michael says, how much? I'll message you, Michael, because they're all limited edition prints, and yeah. But we're basically, we raise money because we have to feed our tigers and lions. Well, no lions right now, and bears and baboons and alligators and so forth. So, that's what the money goes for. Deal, says Shannon. It is a good deal, I'll tell you right now. Shannon is the one that's going to probably have to go to work at midnight and be escorted to her car. Hello, fellow footer. Hi, Mike. Nice to have you along with us tonight. As I said, if you have any comments or questions, we've got several tonight. Very nice ones, by the way. Because I can remember, here's the deal, everybody. I'm a wildlife educator. I don't really consider myself like I've collected information on Sasquatch, Bigfoot for, almost 50 years. The first researcher I really ever spoke to was John Green. I'm kind of spoiled. For the ones that may not know, John Green wrote the Sasquatch, the Apes Among Us, and was basically started in the late 50s reporting about it because he was a newspaper reporter. So I had a wonderful advantage from the very beginning because I was talking to the guy. And after I talked to John Green, I had a chance, because he was his neighbor, I talked to Bob Titmus, all in the same day. Can you imagine? Because let me tell you, when I was first commissioned to do this presentation, to do this lecture on the Bigfoot Sasquatch for an outdoor show, I was going to have fun with it. Because, I really wasn't completely satisfied at that time that they did exist. I hope they wouldn't exist. Because I've always said it sure makes camping and fishing and hiking a lot more interesting if you think that they do. You know what I'm saying? So, but after my conversation with John Green, and then especially after my conversation with the late Bob Titmus, I hung up the phone. And in 1985 or whatever it was, I'd already read the Peter Byrne books and stuff too. I'd gone to the library and researched it too. My world changed. Oh, it changed completely. Because this was a fascinating subject. Fascinating. I thought to myself, here's what happened. There was so much information about them, and there were so many sightings. I thought, why haven't they been discovered yet? I mean, why hasn't the proof been? Why hasn't anyone made a film that is superior to the Patterson-Gimlin film? Well, I think they have. I think there is someone out there that has a film that is unbelievable. I think there is someone out there that has a picture that is unbelievable. But they're not going to release it because that film was maybe shot in their vacation spot they like to go, or maybe that cabin that they've saved their whole lives when they retire they'll go to. And they know what will happen. That if this is released and the location released, every guy in camouflage and cameras hanging on them will show up. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, there are so many people that are still with the Patterson-Gimlin film. God love them. They've taken that film frame by frame and analyzed it. They've gone to the spot now that they've finally found it, the Bluff Creek Project, and they've mapped it out completely. That they basically know every step and the positions that it was taken when that film was shot. And think about this. That whole area is overgrown. It's not like it was in 1967. No, you couldn't look at that film and walk back here and find it without the logistics that the Bluff Creek Project did and all the work that they did back there. Cleared out a lot of the debris. Lee says, I hear a lot of odd sounds here in the country. I live in a mostly wooded area that backs up to pasture land. Really scary sounds. When I can't sleep, I go out my deck all night due to 3 back surgeries. So I'm with you, brother. 3 leg surgeries. I can't sleep. My neighbor right across the road one night, or one morning I should say, he gets up at like at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work. So he was out on his patio next to his house smoking a cigarette. It was in the summertime. It was a nice night. And he said, Larry, I was sitting there and I kept hearing something. I kept hearing something coughing. It's like a coughing sound. And he says, then I realized something. It was imitating me when I'd be out there, sitting on my patio, smoking a cigarette. And it was imitating that sound. Kind of like the Mowgli story. Mowgli. And Ron said, Mr. Moorhead, we talked about that vocalization quite a bit. And I was told we were on the same page. And he also said something that I'm not on the same page at all about, is the unidentified flying object connection. Testing, 1, 2, 3.